Evil Egg by Jenny O'Connor. Within seconds of the TARDIS materialising on Deneb 3, the Doctor emerged through the weathered doors with the eager enthusiasm of a schoolboy loose in a sweet shop. He feasted his gaze on the lush, unspoilt landscape of rolling grassland that undulated away to his left and ended abruptly to cliff. The pounding waves of an azure sea crashed against the rocks below. Ahead and to his right, monolithic sandstone peaks ranged along the coastline, while to his rear, behind the TARDIS, nestled a forest of pines resplendent in the golden glare of a blazing sun. The Doctor was already 100 paces away from the TARDIS, calling for K9 to follow, before the somewhat less enthusiastic robot computer appeared in view, his sensor analysing the alien environment.
"What about the mistress?"
he queried, reluctant to leave Sharon sleeping alone in the space-time machine, yet not wanting his master to fall into goodness only knows what trouble. "Oh, come now, K9, responded the Doctor. "We'll be back before she misses us. Stop dragging your rollers." With that, the Doctor marched on up the gradient towards the sandstone peaks with the robot dog hot on his heels. They had barely made the foothills when K9 halted and proceeded to study a small object partially obscured in a clump of long grass.
"Master."
"What now, K9? There are times when—" Pausing in mid-sentence, his gaze found his lagging companion, apparently sniffing the grass. Evidently K9 had found something of interest.
"An ovoid artifact, Master,"
said K9.
"Preliminary scans show it to be emitting pulses of energy, but is apparently harmless."
"Can't you be more precise than that, K9? With all the electronic circuitry built into you, my little chum, I'd expect a more positive report than that. Why, it could explode or something."
"Sorry, Master. Insufficient data."
"Never mind, K9. Let me see." The Doctor knelt down, fingers gingerly running over the egg-shaped object, metallic in nature and perfectly smooth. His hand closed around it. The egg began to vibrate and grow hot to his touch, and then a pulsating glow encompassed the Doctor, and he vanished, leaving a perplexed K9 standing alone, his sensor probing the air. The Doctor's universe reeled. He seemed to fall. Suddenly, he felt the firm ground beneath his feet, and behind him, a voice.
"An interesting specimen, my brothers."
The Doctor observed the two conversants as they, in turn, observed him. Grotesquely humanoid in appearance, albino white and completely hairless, they gave the impression that they were nothing more than 2-year-old infants. They continued to stare, a look of pleasure upon them as the Doctor spoke. "My word, what a spectacular way to travel," he commented. "You really must explain how you do it. Obviously teleportation, but by mere contact with such a small object? Oh, it really is incredible." He looked around him. Wherever he was, a chamber of sorts. He could see no doors or windows or any other means of entrance or exit. While there was light, faint though it was, no power source was evident. The floor was covered with a filmy, sand-like substance that crunched beneath his feet. The room itself was almost barren. No seating or tables, no decorations or reading matter. Only a pile of assorted objects piled on top of one another off to his right. He stepped forward, hand outstretched, making to introduce himself, but his strange host ignored him. Instead, they resumed their conversation, at which point the Doctor noticed that they communicated purely by telepathy. As he listened in on their conversation, his superior mind seemingly having no difficulty in picking up their telepathic exchanges or meaning. It became evident that they were taken aback by the Doctor's apparent unconcern at finding himself in their midst, unlike others they'd seen.
"You do not seem to be afraid, creature. Why is that?"
The question was asked by both in unison.
"I do apologise,"
replied the doctor.
"I didn't realise that was a requirement of your invitation. Anyway, I was never too good at that sort of thing, so I don't think I'll bother if you don't mind."
The discussion between the two began anew, both showing signs of agitation as they attempted to understand the doctor's apparent unconcern.
Do you think we can?
Queried one.
He may prove harmful to us. He is not the one we established contact with. No, but it has been a long time.
As they conversed, ignoring his movements, the doctor was able to give the objects off to his right closer scrutiny. He silently wished that he hadn't, as the hairs on his neck bristled at the realization that they were the tattered remains of humanoid clothing and discarded personal possessions. It now became perfectly clear that he had not been abducted as a specimen for study, but as the main course on his captor's luncheon menu, one they now had serious doubts about consuming. Pressing his advantage, the doctor rounded on the duo in mock belligerence, an emotion utterly alien to them and one they had not encountered. They cowered away, frightened now for the first time in their lives and anxious to rid him of their presence.
"Well, come on," exclaimed the doctor. "I can't stand around here all day and talk to you fellows. Send me back to where I came from."
Brother and I know not how to do such a thing.
Telepathed one of the duo.
Since we first hungered, our food has come whenever we wished it. Always it was docile. Never have we sent it away.
"And just how do you know when food is available?"
Queried the doctor.
We just know. We think of feeding and it arrives.
The doctor considered this information.
"Well then, I suggest you chaps just think of sending me back," he commanded.
We have tried that already, without success, as you can see,
came the reply. As strange as it seemed, it was obvious to the doctor that these creatures had never left the egg from the moment of their birth and relied on their telepathic link with the egg-shaped object to provide them with their nourishment. But what to do? Sooner or later the creatures would begin to overcome their fears and doubts. How far he had been teleported, he could only guess, but it seemed a safe assumption that he was inside one of the sandstone peaks, if he was to believe the evidence of the sandy floor of the chamber. His only hope was K9, presuming that he was in close proximity and that the chamber was not buried too deeply inside the peak so as to muffle the sound of his dog whistle. The doctor blew and crossed his fingers. Minutes passed without incident, and the doctor began to feel his last hope fading. Then the chamber moved. Not a movement caused by violent mountainous upheaval, rather a rolling motion that sent the doctor careering into the piles of littered clothing to be engulfed moments later by sand slithering down towards him. The floor took the place of a wall, and a wall became a floor. The two creatures remained seated, glided with the movement as though they had experienced the sensation before. And then the wall of the chamber disintegrated, shattered by a piercing beam of radiant energy that left in its wake a hole approximately waist high and almost fried the three occupants of the chamber to a crisp. The doctor made for the opening to find himself struggling through a thick jungle of giant grass, before emerging into what seemed at first glance to be a clearing. He looked around, then up, to see looming high above him a giant K9.
Master!
To K9, his query was merely a whisper. To the doctor, it was a sonic boom. He covered his ears and sank to his knees, fighting against the waves of unconsciousness that threatened to overwhelm him. Silence. Then dizziness, conflicting feelings of falling down into a pit and rising high into the sky at the same time. His eyes opened. K9 stood at his feet.
"Oh, what happened?"
he groaned.
If my sensors did not mislead me, Master, once I aimed a pinpoint beam of laser energy at the metal egg object upon ascertaining that you were inside it. You suddenly appeared no more than a few millimeters in height grew.
You mean I was inside the egg? I thought...
Yes, Master?
Huh. Never mind, K9, never mind. He bent down to retrieve the shattered remains of the egg, but nothing resembling the egg could be seen.
Oh, how frightfully uncivil,
intoned the doctor.
to go without so much as a by your leave.
What they were, how they managed to survive in such an environment, and how it was possible for their victims to be reduced in size when teleported inside the egg, were questions the doctor would puzzle over for some time. For now, however, he was happy to return to the TARDIS in one piece.
Master,
Came the question.
data requested concerning events inside egg.
Oh, my dear fellow, answered the doctor. Inside the egg were two brigands who made a living by leading peaceful, non-warlike creatures to their doom.
But Master,
Protested the dog.
it is understood how a computer's mind process could be mistaken for complete docility, but in your case, Master...
Quite right, old chum, came the agreement. But you didn't touch the egg. I did. It seemed our double act quite surprised them. Entering the TARDIS, the Doctor turned to his central control mechanism. You know, K9, an experience like that is enough to put one off omnits for life, mused the Doctor as he threw the dematerialization lever. The TARDIS hummed, shimmered, and disappeared back into limbo, carrying the Doctor and his companion off to who knows where.